everybody, it's Franny from Heidi and Franny's Garage, and today I got something a little bit different for you. I want to talk to you about how to start working on your own car. So we have a bunch of sort of classic cars here, and if we had to take every one of them to the shop every time we needed to get something done, then they'd eat us out of house and home. So also, growing up, I always didn't have enough money to take my car to the shop and things, and I kind of needed to learn how to work on cars. So there's always been a strong motivation for me to do that. But then it grew into, I love working on cars. It really did. I really love, these things are really fun to work on. I love the project aspect of it. I like to start like an oil change or something and work all the way through it. It makes me feel really good about what I've done on the car, and also gives me quite a bit of knowledge on what's been done with the car. I can see other things that might need a little attention on the car. So it gets me to spend a bit of time with them as well, and that can, increase reliability and usability of the cars as well. So there's a lot of reasons that we'd want to work on our own cars, I think. So the problem is, I think that a lot of people are pretty intimidated by these things. They can be kind of complicated. They're big, they're heavy, they're important, and they're kind of expensive. So we don't want to break things. We want to make sure that the processes get done properly. But if you start with just general maintenance on the cars, remember that the cars were designed for that general maintenance. So that's a great sort of entry point into this. And what we want to do is we want to work on the smaller projects and work up to the bigger ones later, but we want to gain a bit of success in each one of them. The success is going to push us through and give us the motivation and get us through the tough bits of the next project. So problems happen, things break, and you'll have failures here and there. That's, of course, going to happen with any project. And it's great if you can learn from those. So people say, you should always learn from your mistakes, and that's true. But where we might get learning from our mistakes, we get motivation from our success. So really what we want to do is be as successful as possible in all of these. So how do you start? Where do you start? You bought a classic car, or you bought a car and you want to start working on it yourself. You're like, man, I don't even know where to start. The first thing you need is as much information on that car as possible. So I suggest just take to the internet. Go to the blogs. There's always blogs that are specific to manufacturers and to specific cars. There's a tremendous amount of information, some of which is conflicting. So you're going to have to kind of peel through a bit of that and get a consensus. That'll get you pointed in the right directions. It may not answer all of the specifics, but it'll get you really, really close and get you a good place to start. Kind of get your head around what you're getting into. Then another great thing to look at are books that are put out specifically for your car, like Chilton manuals, or like this old John Muir book for Volkswagen Beetles, or Wayne Dempsey's books from his site, from Pelican Parts, on Porsche maintenance, the newer cars and things, and some of the older 911. He has a great one here for 911s. So those books are great as well. And then follow this up with the owner's manual for the car. The owner's manual for the 356 is amazing. It shows you how to do the valves. It shows you how to set the timing, how to adjust the brakes. Amazing amount of information in the owner's manual for that car. Now, of course, as cars have gotten newer, there's less information in the owner's manuals on specific maintenance things, but they can give you the maintenance cycles on things, what you should, types of oils you should use, and that sort of thing the manufacturer suggested. And then on top of that, I suggest you try and find the workshop manuals for your car. Now, that's going to be the golden standard of what you're going to use. You're always going to go back to that, because that is going to tell you exactly the process that the manufacturer recommends to go through. It's what the mechanics use. So they have whole rows of these things. And so you bring your car in, and then if they're not familiar with the particular thing they're working on with your particular car, they'll pull that manual, flop it down, and the manufacturer will have written out the full process on that. And you can have access to those as well. You can either buy them from the manufacturers. They can be kind of expensive for the newer cars. But for the older cars, you can find them online. You can find copies of them. You can find them at car meets and things like that as well. But I have owner's manuals and workshop manuals for pretty much all the cars. and I found some of them online for like the Ferrari, for instance. I have a PDF for that. I have a PDF for the 3.2 Carrera. And for the 356, I have books and I have it electronically as well. They're just invaluable resources. Then there's other bits and things like Joe Leone puts out all those electric books. So if you need something specific, that's where you're going to get that information. But getting your information and getting everything up front is huge. You need to understand what you're in for and what you're going to do in the processes. Okay, great. So you've worked through that and you're like, okay, I'm ready to start my oil change on my car. I've read through the process. I've watched a few videos. I think I have a pretty good idea of what to expect, where to look for bits on the car, and any pitfalls or things that people have come across. Hopefully you can find those as well. Awesome. So now you're going to need tools. So I would suggest not going out and buying a ton of tools up front. It can be very expensive, and you really don't, if you're just starting out, you really don't even know exactly what you need. But you do know what you'll need for this specific thing you're going to start with, say an oil change. You're going to have to get the drain plug off. You're going to have to get your oil filter out. You're going to have to put oil back in. You're going to have a place to put your oil as it comes out of the car, all those sorts of things. So make a list of all the things you need. And I suggest if you're going to buy tools that you're going to use often, make sure they're of good quality. They don't have to be the most expensive tools in the world, but make sure they're of decent quality. And if they're tools that you're going to apply a reasonable amount of force with, make sure that they're accurate tools. So those are going to be more expensive, but those can be just the bits and things. But you want to make sure that they're accurate, because cheaper tools, whereas the tool might break or something might break in a ratchet or something, and that's just annoying. But if the actual tool itself, a wrench or a hex, is off a bit in its tolerances, it can tend to strip things. So you want to make sure that you get decent tools for that. If you've got one-off weird things like this is a seal puller, then that sort of stuff you can buy fairly cheap tools. You're not going to use it very often, once in a while, and they'll work fine for the process and when you need to do them. So once you've got your tools set up, another thing I'd like to talk about for the tools is that I think it's very important to use manual tools. Now, this is kind of just my opinion, but I know a lot of people will buy power tools, air tools, and things like that to take stuff off. I really would rather do almost everything by hand, and there's a reason for that. If you're taking a drain plug off and you've got like a power tool or something, and you pull it out, you really didn't get any information from that. It was pretty fast maybe, but if you can put your hand on the ratchet and pull back, you can feel if that's coming out nice and smoothly, or if it feels like it's not, maybe it's threaded, or stripped or something, maybe the threads are messed up. You can tell all of that in your hands. So, and then when you put things back on, you want to make sure you put them on carefully, almost hand tighten things at first, then cinch them up. And then a very, very important tool that should always be one of your first tools is a torque wrench. You want to definitely use a torque wrench on things. You've done all your research, you looked at your books, you looked at your service manual. That will give you torque values for drain plugs and spark plugs and any bolts and nuts and things that go on the car. The engineers who design these things understand the type of materials that were used. Aluminum plug into an aluminum engine case, or possibly a steel plug into an aluminum case with a different type of washer. Maybe this one's a copper washer. Those all require different torques, and just sort of cinching it down by hand, you don't really know what it should be, and you can easily strip and ruin parts that way, and that really does screw up your day, and it kills your confidence and it kills your success. And we want to be successful and want to have lots of confidence so we can get into our next project, whatever that is, and get through it without without other things going wrong. So you're trying to build good habits as you work on these things as well. Super duper important. Okay, so we got all our stuff. We know our process. We've written down our process. We got our tools. We have an idea of what we're going to do. So what we're going to do is schedule a time to work on the cars when it's going to be nice and quiet, when we're going to have no distractions. You want to leave your phone in the other room. You want to have good lighting. I like the area to be very clean. So like we put epoxy coating on the floor here, and the reason is I can wash it out with the power washer. I can sweep it out very easily. I don't like working in dirty areas. Also, you're going to highly suggest you use rubber gloves. And I know this seems like, oh, you're a wimp if you use rubber gloves. Really? Because the materials that you're using, the oils and the solvents and all that stuff, your hands are very porous. Those chemicals are really bad for you. So you don't want that going in. And also, another great feature of the gloves are that if you're underneath there and you get oil all over it, or kind of sticky or gooey or whatever, you can just rip a glove off and put a new one on. Boom, clean hands. That is super awesome. So they're definitely worth their weight. That's another sort of accessory you want to buy when you're just starting out. Okay, so you got all your stuff. You got if you're going to do an oil change, for instance, maybe you need to jack up your car. You've bought a jack. You have the proper safety equipment. You have your wheels chocked properly, and you're using the proper jack stands. Never crawl under a car you wouldn't send your 10-year-old daughter underneath. I think that's a very important point because you really can't. I can't emphasize the safety enough. I did an oil change on our Boxster when we had it the first time, and it scared me to death to get underneath that thing with the jack stands, and that was it. We got a lift shortly after that, and the lift is worth its weight because of the safety of these things. Now, of course, we use them to store the cars, but it's so much safer with the car with all four wheels on the ground, and they're sitting on the lift, and you can raise and lower it. I know lifts aren't for everybody, but and they don't fit in a lot of garages. I get all that. But I want to point out that safety is paramount. And for the lifts and all that sort of stuff, you can get max jack lifts and all sorts of things that you can install in your garage. It's something to think about. So here's the deal. So you're gonna save a bunch of money when you're working on your car. I like to take that money I've saved on that job and parlay it into new tools and supplies that I need to get through the next jobs as well. So starting out, you're probably going to end up with jack stands. You can get them fairly inexpensively. You can get a nice jack to jack your car up and get your car set. You've got a nice quiet day. You allow twice as much time as you think you're going to need for it. Get yourself sorted, get your head in the game. Look underneath the car, get good lights underneath there as well. I have headlamps that are really helpful. You put them on your head and you got great light wherever you're looking. Map out what you're doing. Work through it. Sort of dress rehearsal really quick. Just go through, say, okay, there's my drain plug. There's my oil filter. Got tools for that. I think I'm all set. I think I can get my drain pan underneath there really well. Kind of work through it. Just do a quick little dress rehearsal. And then you're set to go. So you're going to get your tools that you need to pull your oil plug out or whatever the first step is and just start into it. Be careful, be focused, watch what you're doing, and be organized. If you're taking off multiple parts, I like to use these magnetic trays. You can use anything you want. These things are great. You can set them up in order of your assembly or disassembly, and then as you're taking parts off, put them from different groups in these different trays. So if you're working on the distributor and you've got these bits that go just to the distributor, and then you've got your fan shroud. So your fan shroud parts are going to go in this one. And then you got, I don't know, something else going on. Whatever it is, put your parts in here. And then as you reassemble, you'll know that you're done because there are no more parts left in this thing. And then you get to here and you put everything in you think, and there's one bolt left over. And you're like, that's a bummer. You know it goes to the fan shroud because this was the distributor parts and this was the other thing that you needed. So you'll know where to look to put that part back, and you can go back and you can go, oh, there it is, and you can feel around it. Oh, I see it. Yep, and you can find it much quicker. Organization is key. It's really, really important. So staying clean and staying organized is really important. All right, so you're working through your process. You're getting through the whole thing, and you're getting to the end of it. You're double checking your work as you go. You're making sure that you're torquing everything down. When you get done, you're going to have the confidence now to move on to the next project. So let's say that you're kind of standing behind the car and you're just about ready to go, because honestly, your car, the only thing between your car needs an oil change and your car's had an oil change is you doing it. So at some point you're gonna have to jump into this, and if you're still very hesitant about jumping into it, maybe a good way to go would be to get a mentor. So when we got the 356, that was an expensive car and I really didn't want to break it, and I didn't understand enough about the nuances of that particular car. I contacted the 356 Club, which we remember, and put out a thing and asked if people would come over, and we had a little bit of a party. It was great. So I had some real experts. I had Joe Leone come over, and I had Cal and all these other guys come over, and they directed me as I worked through the car, and that way I had a lot of confidence that I knew that everything I was doing was done properly. And I learned a huge amount from these guys about how to set the end plate properly. We had to pull the flywheel off. There's a little metal gasket in there that has to be replaced. All sorts of stuff that I may not have caught my very first time through. So it was great to have those guys. If you don't have access to mentors, you've got your online community, right? So go on to the blog. Stop what you're doing if you get the least bit confused and you're kind of like, a little lost at this point. Take a bunch of pictures. You want to always have your, another great thing for documentation is to have your little camera here, and take some pictures, write down some notes, and then go back onto the blogs, log on, start a thread, or if you can find one, continue on that thread and say, you know what, I got to this point, but I'm having trouble with this one bit. And a bunch of people will give you lots of advice and lots of information. Hopefully that can get you over that hump and get you on to the next bit and moving through it. So mentors are really, really helpful. But in the end, you're going to get through the project and you're going to learn quite a bit from it. You're going to have a lot of enjoyment. It's really fun to work on your car. I know it kind of sounds like it's kind of scary work, but once you get through it and that feeling of knowing that you got all the processes done, you got all the bits put back together properly, and you start the car up and it's running better, it's working well, you know it's got great oil change, new oil in it, and you know you did a great job on the oil change. All that is just worth so much to get that done. So I hope this was helpful. I wanted to maybe do a few more videos on how to actually, maybe on the tools specifically, maybe some technique tool videos on the tools and things that I think would be helpful to people. This is just to get you motivated and just to get you started and kind of get your head in the game and kind of give you an idea of what you're going to need to get your first projects out. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you got any questions or comments, or you got some neat stories you'd like to share about the first times you worked on your car, go ahead and leave them down below. That'd be great. And like I said, I'll try to get some more videos out on different topics of like tool usage and stuff like that. I think it'll be fun. So thank you so much for watching. And until next time, safe travels. Bye.